Good morning, everyone. We are live today with the principal flute of the Chicago Symphony, Stefan Holzgoodson. And I wanted to just thank everybody for watching and for joining in today. I think it's very special when we can talk to instruments outside of our specialties. I don't consider myself a specialist on flute by any means, but it's really interesting for me to learn from the top flute players in the world. And I really enjoyed getting to know Stefan and to work with him and to hear his artistry. So let's just go online and see if he's here. Here we are. Hey, Stefan,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. How are
Hey,
you, my man?
fantastic to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Okay, is everyone
Yeah,
healthy and well in quarantine?
everyone's good. Yeah,
Okay.
we're uh, we're doing well.
Oh man, I can't imagine. It's first of all, it's tough being off of work, right? It's tough for everyone not getting to play together on the CSO stage, but it's
Yeah.
also really. I'm sure it's probably challenging. You have two little ones, right?
Oh yeah.
So I bet it's nice to spend time with them all the
It's
time. It's a real gift.
it's great. It's amazing. I've actually I this is the best time I've had in my life.
Yeah.
Just to get to be with them 24/7, and it's like an extended paternity leave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is like when they grow, right? They grow so quick, and you just don't
Yeah.
get that time back again.
They change every day, man. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I just want to say a quick hello to a few people. I know
Yeah.
that John Ye is watching. Yeah,
Yeah.
so John is on. We've got
Awesome.
four flutes, one eye. We have, let's see. So would you mind turning your volume down just a tiny little bit?
Yes.
So I think my voice is coming through your phone just a little bit.
Yeah. How is this?
Perfect.
Good.
We've got Attila der Horn. We have Frank Demler from Staatsoper in Berlin.
Nice.
Taylor Horn. We have, let's see, Babushka Graham. We have
Nice.
Gabby Vargas. Let's see who else is watching. Um, Min Flute. We
Uh-huh.
have Not Too Bad. We have Janie Horn. Let's anyone else that you want to say? Park Mouthpiece Center. And we have Ruben Hudnik from Slovenia. He's a friend of mine.
Awesome.
Jen Gunn is watching.
Is that?
Jen Gunn.
Oh, Jen. Hey, Jen.
Yeah. So it's fun, man.
Awesome.
It's like we're hanging out with all of our
That's
friends.
amazing. It's
We
just
have
amazing.
Ben Hausman in Seattle.
Mm.
We have my horn student, that girl Jayla. So it's really nice to see all these people
Fantastic.
here.
This
Bobby
is very
Russo,
cool.
37.
Bobby Russo. Hey, man.
Yeah. So Daniel Pardo, he's a good friend of mine, a flute player from Colombia who lives in Dallas.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Could you tell me a little bit about Iceland? I mean, I feel like today is some Iceland weather in Chicago. We've got the gray, kind of the blanket of clouds.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as cold as Iceland, but could you just what was it like growing up there?
It was great. It was amazing. It was like where I grew up was like in rural Iceland, you would say. It was like a small fishing village, a small tiny village surrounded by high mountains, and it was in a fjord,
Okay.
uh, and it's the landscape there is like it's like the Alps. It's amazing. I had my backyard was a big river. There was a bridge that went over the river, and I could go straight into the mountains. It was like a fairy tale. It was amazing.
Did you grow up hiking a lot?
Yeah, hiking all the time.
Oh man. And then
Climbing mountains.
tell me about like fishing. Did your family fish or did you, because our family's big into fishing.
Yeah, yeah. No, my grandfathers both had they did they worked on my mother's side. My grandfather was an engineer. He worked on a ship that went fishing. My father's side, it was a fisherman who went out every morning at 3 a.m. To sail the seas and fish.
Man, I
Yeah.
mean, that's tough work. That's really
Yeah.
dangerous and that's tough work.
Yeah,
I mean,
very tough.
so I guess like for me, what inspires me about those guys is every morning they're up at 3 a.m. and they're just out and they're like, you know, it doesn't matter if the seas are like really choppy and really scary. I mean,
Yep.
they're still doing it because that's how they earn their living, and it must be
Hmm.
crazy adventure too.
Yeah, those are tough guys, like, yeah,
So that's you,
full
man.
time.
So like you've
And here I am playing the
have you
flute.
have you taken have you taken any lessons from that, like with like the work ethic? Have you taken any lessons from that with just like, you know, toughness? Like,
Well, I mean, I think it's like, uh, my father grew up, obviously with that, mentality. In the, he was born in 1930. My father,
mm,
and he grew up, you know, in the midst of that in the 40s, and had to, work really hard, and he didn't, um, he had to really work hard at everything that he wanted to do, and he wanted to be a musician, but I mean, he became a musician in his own way. He was a church organist, and his main business was furniture,
oh wow.
but he worked extremely hard, and I just remember him as a man who never sat down. He was just on a Sunday, if there was a day off, he would just go out. If there was nothing to do, he would clean the windows and clean the cars. It was like a nonstop work. And my mother is the same, and I think I just kind of learned from that. They were always doing something.
Wow. So for me, I mean, when I look at my dad, he was a manual laborer.
Yeah,
He did, you know, landscape contracting, right? So he did the drawings for landscaping, but he also did snow plowing. He did, you know, he ran a yard crew, yeah, tree
yeah,
removal, and all
right.
this stuff. He was like one of the strongest guys I've ever seen, but that kind of like that physical, like he was always working. And he used to always say, like, listen, there are going to be people who are more talented than you, but you have to outwork them. And I think that was kind of like the mentality that I had growing up is like, you just got to, you know, roll up your sleeves and do the work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. I just remember him always. He kept an eye on me always. Asked me every day if I practiced, and did you practice today? And like, and he didn't have to ask me because I just did it automatically because no one had to tell me how to practice. It was just something I did.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a love of music, right? And then a
Yeah,
curiosity, how can I make it better?
yeah.
So tell me about your first introductions with flute and how did you choose the flute?
Well, I was good at the recorder when I was
Really?
6. Yeah. I got a really nice sound out of it. My father got really excited, and my parents and I, they um and I tried a couple of instruments, like an introduction, like a class, um and I didn't like anything that because there was like clarinet and trumpet, like I just couldn't, had no interest in it. I have a niece, sorry, um an aunt who plays the flute in the town that I was born. And my father just kind of suggested, why don't you go and, see if you like the flute, and she'll teach you. So I had my first lesson with her,
How old were
which
you?
was, I was like 7 or 8. I was 8, I think.
Wow.
And then she, yeah, I tried the flute, and it was like, boom. I was just, I was sold. I was,
What did you like
down.
about the flute?
I liked everything about it. I was so mesmerized by the sound. It was like a magical sound. It was like this kind of a, I don't know. It had sound. It was a sound that had kind of layers to it. It had so much effect on me. I don't know how to really, and I still have that.
Yeah.
I have that love for it. I still. From the day I started. It's the same love, the same fascination with the sound of it.
Well, when you play, I was recounting to Jen that like when you were in Carnegie, because of our hall, sometimes I don't hear as well across the orchestra, but something about being in Carnegie, like the sound that you were able to produce in that hall, it just like it. I remember just thinking like, holy smokes, this is like some of the greatest flute playing I've ever heard. Just the sound, just like it, like just captivated me, and it like penetrated my soul. It was like really, and then also I'll never forget you in Aida. It was
Thank you.
like, I mean, that solo in Aida. Is it the third act where it's the
Yeah, third act. Yeah.
oh man, and it like took me to a different place. It really actually, like, it's funny, but it took me to like Iceland, like in my imagination. And I like
Thank
was
you.
right there with you, like, you took me to a different place with your sound, which
Thank you.
is amazing. Could you talk about when you decided to pursue music as a career?
Um, it was just kind of. I don't think there was a definitive moment that I just decided. It was always there. It was just like a never a question, I guess.
Yeah.
It was never a question like that. That was what I was gonna do, and I was my father. He got in touch with he had a cousin in the Iceland Symphony, and he introduced my father to Bernhard Wilkinson, who was principal at the time in Iceland Symphony.
Mhm.
He was my first teacher, and really I was very fortunate to meet him. So
Wow.
my he was a member of the Reykjavik Woodwind Quintet.
Yes.
Yeah, remember
Yeah,
the
they're
famous.
awesome. If you haven't, just for the audience members who haven't checked
Yes,
out the Reykjavik Wind
check them
Quintet,
out.
they're fantastic.
It's a pristine woodwind playing. I mean, they worked so hard on and they really mastered the art
Yeah.
of wind quintet.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's like a prime example of a great group that's like, kind of like master the repertoire, but also a really good complement to each other. Like everyone
yeah,
in the group is like, really complementary, like amazing,
absolutely, it's really amazing, and they figured so much. It was such an interesting time, and they came to the small town that I lived in, just for like a school visit, and they played for the kids, and like just all sorts of funny things like that, Flight of the Bumblebee, and it was great. I was 9, and my father came up to Bernard, and introduced me, and here's this little guy who wants to, can he play for you and stuff like that. And so I played for him, and then he said, yeah, why don't you come next month for a lesson, just practice this and this, and we'll take it from there.
Wow. And how far was Reykjavik from your town?
It was like at the time it was like an 8 or 9 hour drive.
No way.
Yeah.
So your dad drove you 8 or 9 hours. You probably had to spend the night in Reykjavik.
Yeah. We spent a couple of days always at the time, and we drove.
And did you see a concert while you were there, or did you
Very
just,
often.
yeah.
Yeah, I would go see the Iceland Symphony, and that was like mind blowing. I used to see them play. It was an unbelievable time for me. I got to, hear them play the great masterpieces. And I remember one time hearing the Rite of Spring, and I was just like blown away by the sound. And like, yeah, it was an amazing time.
It's funny, like when I've heard great orchestral performances, it's life changing. I'll
Yeah,
never forget the first time I heard, the Berlin Philharmonic play
right.
Beethoven 5, and I'd grown up listening to a tape of that, a cassette tape.
Yeah,
And when I heard, I was like, okay, this is Beethoven 5. And I went, and it was just like time stopped. It was like,
yeah,
wow, I want to dedicate my life to this. This is incredible. And then the first time I heard the Chicago Symphony live, I mean, I'll never forget the Rosencavalier suite with Mr. Clevenger. It's like, again, time stopped. And I was like, you can do that on the horn? Like, holy smokes.
yeah.
I think that's what classical music does for me, is it just draws me in and I lose
Right.
myself in it. And
Yeah,
especially the Rite of Spring.
yeah.
How cool. I mean, wow. Like what, what an opportunity for a student, but also,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you see it with ballet, or did you see it?
No, it was just a concert. It was like a concert version. And Iceland Symphony did their subscription concerts, every Thursday, and I used to go, whenever I could, whenever I was in Reykjavik, obviously. And yeah, it was great.
What was your first impression of the piece? Like, what were you just like? What were you
I was like,
taken by?
wow, I couldn't believe the sounds coming out of the orchestra. I just like, how on earth, you know, can you combine these instruments and get this effect, you know, like combine, you know, combinations and effects of like, you know. And I ended up like, my teacher was big into conducting also. He became a conductor also after he finished with the Iceland Symphony. And you know, so he introduced me to like score study and stuff like that. And you know, we used to do a lot of geeking out, you know, studying scores. And like, you know, he used to explain to me, you know, put these instruments together and, you know, that's what the effect you get, you know, and like, look at this. And like, so that was like a whole like a fascinating study for me. And we used to do a lot of that kind of work, you know.
Wow. I mean, it's so cool to like just hear how these coincidences lined up in your life just at the right time. It's like you just happen to start with the recorder. You just happen to, your aunt just happened to be a flute player. The Reykjavik Wind Quintet just happened to come through your town, and then you happen to, you know, introduce yourself. And then your teacher happened to, you know, be in the quintet and happened to be like a, you know, a conductor and do scores. Could you talk a little bit about what it was like for you leaving Iceland? Because I feel so close to my community of Michigan. You know, it's the Midwest, and just having to leave Michigan and go outside of that comfort zone, that familiarity, is like something that's like, oh, you know, even in the States, like it's the same country, but going to the East Coast was like, you know, terrifying at first, exciting but terrifying, you know.
I went basically, Iceland is a small island, of course, as you know, but so my steps were, I moved from the east coast of Iceland, a small town, to Reykjavik when I was 16. And then I continued my study with Bernard Wilkinson there in the Reykjavik Conservatory. And then I graduated when I was 20, and I had studied 11 years with Bernard. And that's when I went to Manchester and the Royal Northern College of Music.
No kidding. You went to Manchester
to do my postgraduate.
Are you Man City or Man United?
Well, I think I'm Manchester United.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
They were amazing. Did you get to see them play at all?
I never did.
No. Okay. Okay. One of these days, bucket list. Next time we go to England, we're gonna go see.
I just never made it to Old Trafford. You know, I was just just studying all the time. And
that's the right answer. You're like practicing band. Sorry.
But I remember the distinct moment of leaving Iceland. I remember that being a very, you know, kind of a bittersweet moment. And I remember just being on the airplane flying over to Manchester or actually to London. And it was painful, you know, because I'd spent my whole childhood and teenage years there, and I had made such great friends, amazing experiences, and I love Iceland, and it was, you know, strange.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it was,
it's a different culture too, right? You know,
yes.
you to a new place and there's a different culture. All of a sudden you're speaking English and you're trying to figure out the culture. Was there a different style of playing in England than you were trained with?
No, actually it was pretty similar because Bernard, who was my teacher, was born in Manchester and raised, and he went to the Royal College as well, studied there. And he was very, you know, in England, the flute playing is has its own sort of seat, I would say. They are very influenced by French, for the French school, but also have their own like sort of take on, you know, the techniques and style and interpretation.
One of my favorite flute players is Lorna from Pittsburgh Symphony. I mean, I think Lorna, was she in school about the same time you were? Lorna?
No, we did not. Our paths did not cross in school, but there's some just amazing flute players there, and a really strong tradition for flute playing there.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there like a few different flute schools? I mean, forgive me for asking, but I know there's a French flute school.
Yeah.
Is there a German or a Viennese flute school as well?
Um, you know, it's a good question. I think there's definitely a sort of do you call it a strain of certain traditions or ideas.
Mm.
Whether they are French or German is it's hard to say.
Mm.
I know in France, in Paris, and in France, there's definitely very sort of things that have been passed on within.
What are some of those things that are passed on?
I think I don't know. It's to do with articulation. It's to do with breathing. Different set of ideas. I can't really put my finger on. It's so
and
weird.
phrasing?
Yeah, in England when I studied there, was the emphasis was always very much on the sound and intonation.
Mm.
Intonation was just like an unbelievable part of my upbringing.
Yes.
And my musical upbringing, and phrasing
So,
and sort of interpretive skills.
so
So
when we hear auditions,
mhm,
I think that's probably, for me, like the intonation can really stick out if it's
mhm,
really good or bad, right?
mhm, yes, definitely.
But I mean, I think sound is the first thing that I listen for in an
Mhm.
audition.
Yeah, it's what you hear first, and then it's the basic thing, and then it's what the person does with it.
Yes.
You hear the sound, and then it's what the person does with the sound. Like where you put the airstream, where you put according to how loud you're playing or how soft. So
Wow.
that's I just felt that I got a very solid background in that in England.
So when did you start working professionally? What was your first professional job?
It was I just kind of after I graduated in Manchester, I didn't really have a firm position anywhere.
Mm.
I did competitions, I did a few auditions here and there, and then I ended up in New York City, and I took auditions
How did
for.
you end up in New York City?
It's a series of events in my
Really?
personal life that brought me there.
That's
That
awesome.
I'm not gonna go into.
No, no worries.
But
No
those
worries.
who know me will know.
Yeah.
Those who don't will find out.
Yeah, yeah. So I
So
mean, like all of a sudden you're like, from small town, 8 hours from Reykjavik, and then all of a sudden you're in like the center of the, like
yeah,
the
it was
metropolis of the world.
crazy, and I was crazy. That crazy journey that I went through, and
What was your favorite, like your first impression of New York City, of America, of like,
I mean, it was unbelievable.
were you excited? You were like,
Yeah, I was beyond excited. I mean, it was like, wow, what is this place? This is. I mean, I'd always, you know, you know, loved the idea of New York, and I've seen it in the movies, but I had never actually been there. But the energy that hit me when I came there was just like, wow.
I mean, for me, it's like, I was instantly captivated by how people talk, like
Yeah.
the intensity of how they talk, the accent, and then like how fast they're walking down the street, and then of course like how big the buildings are, how
Yeah.
loud the traffic. There's always sound in New York City. It's always like
Always.
a jackhammer or a car or something, and then
Always.
you go to Times Square and it's just so many tourists and so many lights. It's
Yeah, and I was like, I think it had a profound effect on me, and it also has its charm,
yeah.
the city has its charm, and I was my first time there was 1997, I think,
Okay.
and I was still living in England, and then 2003, I think it was then, auditions, or a couple of auditions in Lincoln Center that came up. There was the New York City Opera, New York City Ballet. They had both had flute openings
Yeah.
at the same time, within the same sort of time frame. So I took those auditions, and I did pretty well, and I was like, whoa, okay. I didn't get the job, but I was like, okay, I was encouraged.
You're
And then
encouraged.
a few months later, then the second flute piccolo chair at the Met opened up, just across the plaza. And then I decided, okay, I'm gonna take that one, and then that was my first job, my
No
professional
kidding. So you won
job.
second flute and piccolo at the Met. That was your first job.
Yeah.
Wow. Had you played much piccolo before then, or was that kind of like a new?
Not really.
So you're like trial by fire.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was able on the piccolo, and it was I was trial by fire. Really.
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's like. It'd be like for me going in and playing Wagner tuba for the first time with like the Berlin Phil or something like that. It's like I know how to do it, but in that situation, that's a lot of pressure. That's like it's huge.
Yeah, and I just remember that the energy at the Met was great. It was like
it's a really great.
It was an incredible. I never forget my first rehearsal there was Siegfried, with Levine. I was playing second flute. And just the sound, this energy that hit me was just like I couldn't believe it. It was like it was something special.
Wow, I mean that funeral march. Is it the funeral march for the end of the first act or the second act? Excuse me, second act.
The Siegfried's funeral march.
Yeah,
that's in Götterdämmerung, but it's okay.
I'm sorry, it's not. It's great music.
Okay.
It's great music.
I mean, it's the same story.
Yeah.
But it's like 6, 7, 10 hours later.
Okay. So the next sequel, right? Yeah, exactly.
Next sequel, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing.
It's unbelievable music, and I mean, Siegfried amazing. Has the short call, or the long call. Excuse me, Forest Murmurs. It's the that's
and the
one.
big horn solos, and I just remember I'd never played a Wagner opera. It's just, and I remember just like how long is this going to go on for? I mean, how long am I going to sit?
I know that feeling. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like this endless like music. And I just remember like
going,
just
but
it's there, like
great. It's great music, and it's like sustained, like drama. Which for me is like, wow, there's always some like really amazing music right around this corner. You go through and it's like, drama, and then all of a sudden amazing music. And it's really, really fun to, I did Parsifal a couple years ago in Baden-Baden at the Eastern
one of my favorites. I love Parsifal.
Wow.
Just incredible. I mean, there's not much flute stuff. I mean, in the Ring Cycle or in Wagner in general. And like, it's more for you guys. It's written for
the singers too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously singers, but the flute stuff is always more geared towards like effects, or like, high chords, or like when Brunhilde wakes up, there's like this flute chords at the end of the, end of the opera, high third register, like, try to play in tune after like 5 hours of blowing. You have to play pianissimo, like,
I mean, I know how hard it is to hold a horn for like 5 hours, but I mean, a flute with your arms up and your shoulders. I mean, do you ever experience kind of like physical pain after like holding a flute up for 5 hours, like in certain areas?
Definitely, it's a challenging thing to be in this kind of position for a long periods of time, especially in the opera. I mean, your entire torso twists, and your neck gets stiff, and your shoulders in particular, because you're doing that, and it's hard to. So you really one has to really take good care of the body.
What do you do for your like physical conditioning? I mean, is there anything you can do for recovery, number one, or is there anything you can do for strengthening, like to help?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say core strengthening is extremely important. Just to kind of especially for sitting and holding yourself upright. That's kind of the main thing,
Yeah.
Then I've been taking osteopathy for a long time. I was introduced to osteopathy in New York City. That really kept me in shape.
John Ye says Pilates.
Pilates.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, my man.
what is osteopathy?
Osteopathy is kind of a skeletal kind of a manipulation,
Oh,
and of the you know, bones. I can't really explain it, but it's hands-on, you know,
okay.
manipulation, and they align. It's a aligning of your energy, of the
The
kind of the
bones, just making sure the
muscles,
bones.
bone tissues. Yes,
Wow, I've done some Feldenkrais, and
Feldenkrais
that's
similar. Yeah.
there's an amazing practitioner who used to come to Marlborough, and she
Mm,
would work with the musicians who have injuries,
yeah.
like from overuse, overwork, and I didn't have any injuries per se at that time, except I did have a pulled glutamus maximus
Yeah.
soccer. I was playing a lot of soccer, and tried to play without warming up, and I pulled something in my glute.
Mm,
So, but
yeah.
anyways, the point of me telling you that is that she would kind of get in and support the muscle, like support the arm or support the ribs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I'd feel like 6 inches taller,
Yeah.
and I would play, and there'd be this resonance in my sound, just like because I wasn't holding on to this like tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
just noticed that if I could play without tension, I'd have number one, more sound, and number two, I would have an easier time and less pain. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes hand in hand, and I think the body work is just constant. It has to be constant.
yeah,
You know, kind of we think we're kind of you know, indestructible, you know, until a certain age,
yeah,
you know, and like definitely, and I think, you know, people think in their 20s you can do anything, you know, and then like, and then when you're 40, you know, oops, you know, ouch, you know what? So I think it's the earlier the kind of awareness of body alignment, the better.
Could you talk about how you transitioned from second flute to principal flute in the Met? Like, because that's a big jump. Like, that's a
Hmm.
completely different role.
Yeah, it was that was a big a big move. Yeah, I was playing. So basically, I played next to you know, my predecessors, Michael Parloff and Trudy Kane, who are I consider them both my mentors and amazing people, great people, both of them. And basically in 2007, I started filling in for Michael Parloff for a while, and then 2008 they Trudy and Michael both retired at the same time. So the two openings at the Met at the same time. So I you know, just that, you know, told myself, okay, this audition is here, and I'm gonna take it, you know. And that's it was tough, you know, and I had to really kind of tune into the fact that I just had, you know, I didn't try to like. I remember just telling myself, okay, you know, if this doesn't happen, it's okay,
Yeah,
you know, because you know I have a job and it's great, you know, it's amazing, you know, and like so just really being grateful for what I had more than anything else.
yeah.
So I wasn't like obsessed with the idea of like becoming the next principal, you know, of the Met.
And not putting that pressure on yourself, kind of like
Yeah,
it's okay, whatever happens. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna let go of this outcome, but
yeah,
really, let's do the best that we can do. And
yeah,
okay, I'm gonna do it. That's
yeah. And I just
such a
decided, you
lesson
know,
for all of us.
I kind of reverted back to my, you know, kind of work ethic, and just to really work hard. And I'm going to work hard at this, and I'm going to work, and it paid off, you know.
Wow.
So
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that's fantastic. What
mm,
sort of work? I mean, it must the amount of work with the Met is unbelievable. Like you're playing 5 hour operas. You're doing like 2 operas at a time, 3 operas at a time sometimes, and doing rehearsals on top of that. How did you find the time to practice, and what kind of like how did you become more efficient about practicing?
well, I was just like kind of trying to manage my time effectively. Um, it was just finding every single moment, you know, that I could to practice and to kind of to target the things that were difficult for me, you know, basically
Mm,
to really identify what's hard for me and
yes.
work on that only, you know. because there's always stuff that's easy for us. You know, we could look at an audition list and say, okay, this I can do, this I can do, this I can do, this, and this.
Yeah.
Is a bit of a challenge for me, so I'm just going to focus on that for, you know, 3 months or something. Yeah. And the rest of it, so then you kind of just piece together the list, and so that kind of, you know, is kind of what I did.
That's such a humbling experience to like look at the stuff that I don't do so well, and it's like, you know, it's more fun to play the stuff I play well, right? You know,
yeah.
Like, I want to play the stuff I'm good at. I want to play the stuff that sounds great.
Yeah.
And then to be like, man, this doesn't sound good. I need to spend some time on this.
Yeah.
Really...
Just try to understand why, what it is that I need to learn about the stuff that is hard for me, you know, and then there's also that stuff that you think is easy for you may end up not being so easy, you know.
Yeah, because I overlook it. I'm like, I got that.
I got this. Oops. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So
I still fall into that trap.
Yeah, like me with like long notes. That's like, I'm like, you know, like I have this tendency. I see a football like a whole note, and I'm like, you know, like I'm already thinking about that technical passage. But meanwhile, I'm like, oh man. Or counting rests, like, how, you know, I got this. It's just counting rests. And you're like thinking about that techno passage. You're like, oh, is that 8 measures or 9 measures? Like, how many measures rest am I at? It's the easiest thing in the book. Just count your measures rest. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I got that.
It's amazing. It's amazing, really. Yeah.
That's so funny. So tell me about how long it took you to learn the entire, like the opera repertoire. I mean, like the standard opera repertoire, because it's like it's so many pieces.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. A ton
of notes.
And you learned it probably all on second flute. And then you went to like principal flute, and it's just.
Yeah, it's yeah, it was crazy. You know, I was at the time in my life when I really had time, you know. I was single, and I was, you know, just doing the stuff that I wanted to do, and I was crazy about just playing the flute. Like it was kind of you know, I just learned a lot. I just learned an awful lot of stuff, you know, and you know, also at the Met, you know, I have to understand the rehearsals there's a lot of rehearsals for one opera. So you come in for the first orchestra reading, and like that's like a rough read sometimes, you know, a lot of the time. And then you have for a piece like let's say Salome or Siegfried or something like that, or even, you know, the bigger stuff, there's plenty of time to learn it, you know what I mean? And then you're also in a position where the orchestra is, you know, it's not, I mean, it's in the spotlight, but it's not quite in the same way as, let's say, Chicago Symphony.
Yes.
So you're supporting the singers. Obviously that's the idea, but also, so it's a bit of a different just vibe altogether.
Well, I mean, I just can't imagine listening to the singers all day and just like being able to hear the best singers in the world and just be able to like learn from them.
Yeah, it was great. It was amazing.
What experience.
Yeah, it was really.
Do you have any favorite singers that you worked with while you were at the Met?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of good ones. Diana Damra was one of all-time favorites. She was a soprano, just amazing, so versatile, and she sang, I remember, Zerbinetta in Ariadne of Naxos. Yeah. It was stunning. She sang, I got to do Lucia Di Lammermoor with her, the mad scene. That's the flute and soprano cadenza. And I got to do that with her, which was kind of mind-blowing. It was really special moments.
Is there a recording of that? Can we listen to it? Is it available?
There, yes. I think there is. I think it's on the. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but I think that it's either on the Met app, you know, Met Opera app, or somewhere on the internet.
Okay, I'll look for that.
Yeah. Can
you tell me which act it's in?
Yeah, so that one is in the third act. I think
Third
it's
act.
3 acts.
And you're just going through the Rolodex of all the
I'm
options.
like,
You're like,
it's in the last act, let me say.
I saw the gears like computing.
It's in the last act of Lucia Di Lammermoor.
The last act. So, what was it like to transition from the opera world to the symphonic world?
It was quite an adjustment, you know.
Mm.
It was
How so?
just like, for example, I mean, you know, you're not playing in a pit, you know, you're on stage, you are like visible.
Yeah. Yes.
People
Number
really
one.
are looking at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Specifically you.
You got to polish your shoes every day.
Not the set, not the singer, you know, like it's you, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So like that was a mental adjustment, but I it took me a couple of years to kind of, you know, wait. The lights are like glaring at me, you know.
Wow. And I mean, it's probably pretty easy to know what Maestro Muti wants, since he's, you know, an operatic conductor, and you're used to playing operas. So it's probably really easy to understand where his thought process comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I got to work with him also at the Met. We did a early Verdi opera called Attila.
Oh wow!
And that was, you know, and yeah, it was great moments.
So, could you tell me about your audition for the Chicago Symphony and just kind of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, it came at a great time for me, and I was, you know, definitely in great shape. I was playing a lot, and you know, decided to go for it. You know, I've always loved the Chicago Symphony, always, and I got to come here to sub when I think it was 2010. Got to play a week here, and I loved it, and I just like remember that amazing sound. What an amazing sound, you know. It was, and what a great city, really, and I really love the city.
You told me when I was looking at my first trial week, or not trial week, maybe it was one of my guest weeks. I think you told me, you know, New York is the city of the world, and Chicago is the city of America, and it truly does feel like America.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it has a lot of that element to it, and I still find it has that kind of charm, if you like, and that like New York has in a way.
Yeah.
You know, you walk around, you see great buildings. You know what I mean? You see old buildings, and you know, you see, you know, that kind of you can identify the city as, and it has its own personality.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like you say, New York has its own personality. Chicago has a different personality, but it's distinct city personality.
Having lived in both, which pizza do you like better? You don't have to.
Neither one.
Neither one. You're like, yeah, Napoli. I like Napoli. Scusi, allora.
Yeah, we make our own pizza here in this household. Yeah,
I'm sure. I know you have to run to.
It's okay. We have a few minutes if you wanna.
Okay.
Go a little more.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying getting to talk to you and spend time with you. You're one of my best friends at the Symphony. I mean,
it's honestly great to talk to you, man. It's just so great to have you with us, and you sound amazing, and just you know, it's I can't wait to get back.
Either. Yeah,
I hope it's soon. I hope it's soon.
Well, tell me, what are you doing musically right now during this time of stay at home? I mean, that's kind of the thing that I think you're one of these hardworking guys that's going to work hard wherever you are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just playing my scales, you know, like scales are, you know, the mainstay of my existence right now.
I love that.
Like, and the Mozart Flute and Harp Concerto. We're supposed to play that with me and Sarah Bullen. Supposed to play that with Muti at the opening of the season, 2020 September. So I'm practicing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and taking care of my little ones.
Oh man.
So that's it. That's
Are
it.
are you sharing music with your family? I mean, does I haven't met Natalie yet. I'm sorry, but does she play an instrument?
Yeah. She's a bassoonist.
And do you do duets at home?
Great bassoonist. Yeah, we do. We do. We sometimes you know, bust out some duets and have fun.
Are you
You
doing
know.
any transcriptions? Have you stolen anything for
No,
flute bassoon yet?
not yet.
Not yet.
Not
You're
yet.
not
No,
that bored.
we're not. We have a lot of stuff to do at home, and between the 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh man,
So
yeah, I can imagine. That's you probably have your hands full chasing after the kids.
yeah. It's quite something.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's so cool. I mean, yeah, what is it like to be, a father? Like, what joy does that bring to you?
It's the greatest thing in the world, I tell you. The greatest thing in the world. I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to have that experience.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so grateful for them. They're beautiful, wonderful children, and
I mean, you must learn a lot just by, teaching them and trying to figure out how to share your knowledge with them. But also, it must be so cool to see a part of yourself growing and, like and you probably remember some of the things that you did when you were a child with them.
yeah. Totally. I'm seeing it with Alexander now. He's 3.5 now, and he's a strong little guy, strong personality, and very energetic, and we're figuring out ways to channel that energy in the right direction.
Man,
And
I'm still trying to figure out how to channel my energy. Oh, man, that's fantastic. Do you have a recorder for him? Have you?
Yeah, I have my old recorder that I started on.
And you gave that to Alexander?
Yeah, he's got it.
No kidding. And can he play anything on it?
Yeah, he mostly likes to like blast it really hard and like make a loud sound.
Yeah, it sounds like he's gonna be a horn player someday.
Yeah, I think it
Too
looks
loud.
like that.
That's fantastic. What composers do you love to play in the symphony?
What's that?
What composers do you love to play in the symphony, in the Chicago Symphony?
I it's hard to say. I mean, I love everything. I've the Beethoven and the Brahms symphonies have been like such an amazing thing to get to play, and I never really got to play all of them, at the Met. We did some of them, but not nearly as much as here.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's been an amazing discovery, and I'd say.
Oh man, I'll never forget you playing Sibelius and
the Sibelius, of course,
the Nielsen. It was just like you were like a duck in water, man. It was like just like
I love those pieces.
Yeah, it came to life, and it was really special to hear you play.
It was fun. Yeah, likewise. Yeah, it was fun concerts. I keep thinking about those concerts. They were special.
Yeah, they really were.
Yeah,
we had Hannu Lintu, who is a Finnish.
Yeah. It was nice.
What are some of your favorite performance memories of all time? Like, what are some of your favorite concerts that you've done?
There have been so many. I mean, we've had some amazing moments with Muti. In the last 4 years I've been here. Like when we did Brahms 2 with him on tour.
I wasn't part of that, but I heard the concert.
Yeah, those were pretty amazing moments there, just unforgettable, like moments that musically that were just you can't really describe. It was like, wow, am I really a part of this kind of great sound, this expression that lately I think Cavalier Rusticana was one of the big ones with him. That was just mind-blowing. I mean, to get to play that piece with him.
Yeah, it was out of this world. It was really, it was really special.
Aida, of course, as well.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, there have been so many. One one of my favorite moments at the Met was when I got to do Magic Flute with James Levine. It was that was my first time playing principal flute with him, and I remember having to do that with like no rehearsal. I had to just come in and play it, and it was scary, but it was unforgettable.
What was special about it? Like just
it was just
timing, the pacing,
the energy, and I think the fact that also that I had no rehearsal, you know. But he was very with me. He was very generous and he showed everything he wanted, and I just kind of glued my eyes to him, and that was a great moment too.
Yeah, I think for me, when I have those moments that I look back in my career where I'm completely in the moment, right? Like, and I feel like I'm playing better than I could possibly have played, you know, by myself. And my colleagues are also there with me. Those are some of the most special musical moments. And I mean, I just have to say, like, some of those moments, like the Cavaliere Rusticana, that intermezzo that Muti did. I mean, I was like literally like thinking about the string sound, and he was so in the moment, taking time, and everyone was right there with him.
Yeah.
It was just like, you know, there wasn't time. It was just like we were just completely in the moment and on that journey together. And I think the audience maybe knows how lucky we are in Chicago to have Maestro Muti, but I mean, really, he is completely like one of the, you know, the really special musicians out there, one of the special conductors.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, I mean, there's just another level.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have that kind of direction. I mean, leadership and musical, you know, musical direction. You know, and musically speaking, I mean, that kind of, you know, just it's very special. You know, we have
absolutely. So really quick, John Ye says Magic Flute with Levine. Mia used to listen to the old Met video of that when she was 2 and sing along.
Yeah.
And then Composer Nerd says never a dull moment in all of the Magic Flute.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That just great memories. Really.
Yeah, it really is. I can hear my my daughter is doing an aria out here now, so that's a signal for me to.
That's a signal to wrap it up.
To come to.
Could you just give us a couple pieces of advice for students, you know, during this time? Like, what would you suggest for students, and what would you suggest for young musicians?
To stay inspired. You know, just keep loving the music and you know, just be creative and finding ways of nurturing your love for the music, you know, and practice scales, you know, practice your scales. It's like, it's amazing, you know, but I think, yeah, it really keep connected, you know, stay connected to the source.
Absolutely. Yeah. So listen more, you know, find
listen
resources.
Yeah. Find, you know, listen to music, you know, just listen to anything, learn stuff you haven't learned before, you know.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And then lastly, you know, why is music and the arts so important, especially right now?
What's that?
Why are music and the arts, especially now, really important?
Yeah, right. That's because, you know, that's they bring us closer to what is good and beautiful about the world, you know. Yeah. They remind us, you know, that there's goodness and there's beauty, you know.
Thank you.
So yeah.
That's perfect. Hey, I miss you so much, man.
Miss you too, man.
And yeah, let's just, you know, keep this going. I'm sorry for keeping you so long.
Definitely,
thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you so much, David. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, what an honor to get to talk with you today and to see you again and to hear your stories. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, man.
All right, bye-bye. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you all.